Should I avoid telling my employer that I'm buying a house? So I'm at a relatively new job, been here just over a year, and after 9 years of saving my money, I'm in a position to finally buy a home. I've been spending a lot of my time recently house hunting, seeing houses and the like. Now, I've had a lot of people telling me to avoid letting my employer that I'm buying a house. A lot of their reasoning is so that my employer doesn't get an idea that I'm now reliant on their income to survive. I've also had a friend mention that telling his employer he had just bought a house helped him months down the line when they were having layoffs. His boss specifically chose to keep him on to avoid hardship. What do you all think? Don't tell your employer anything about your personal life unless you absolutely must. They are not your friend. The CEO of my company has literally told me he gave one of my coworkers an ultimatum on a task because he had just bought a home and couldn't afford to say no. Did the same thing to a coworker who just had kids. He has even gone so far as to complain to coworkers that since I live so simply and have no debt, I'm difficult because I just say no. Backquote, the less they know, the better off you are. Backquote. Don't tell them anything about your personal life. Unless you're friends outside of work. Separate the two is extremely healthy. Never share personal information with your employer. Well, your employer already knows you're reliant on your income. If you weren't, you probably wouldn't be working there. HR will get a call to verify your employment, and that call will come from a bank. So they'll know you're buying a house or taking out a large enough loan to necessitate the bank calling them. Your boss won't care, to be honest. In many cases, your employer is likely going to find out anyway when the bank asks for the paperwork to verify employment or income. Also, change of address when you update employment records. Your employer will find out when the mortgage lender calls to confirm your income. And they will call or require a fax. They don't just trust your pay stubs. You could have faked them or been fired since then. People get jealous over the stupidest things. Don't share anything. Only you know your employer. Are they scummy or reasonable? Do you have a close relationship? I generally chose to keep as much from my employer as possible, but they have a history of narcissism. Some employers are good people who will understand your life situations and help keep you afloat. Only you can make this judgment call. Vulnerability is tough. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Your boss probably doesn't give a shit unless they are some sort of weirdo. I had a boss that would consistently make the joke when one of his employees would buy a new big thing like a house or a car. I am paying you too much. He always thought it was a funny joke. It's not funny. They will almost certainly need proof of employment, so your employer will find out anyway. In 25 years of working, no one has ever asked about my living arrangements beyond that. Why on earth would you tell them anyway? Don't listen to he said, she said about other people and their bosses. They will lay you off at a scratch of their ass if they are so inclined. House or no house. You are overthinking it. P.S. Don't share private stuff at work. They are not your friend or family. 90 of this thread be like, I've never bought or tried getting a mortgage, but don't tell them, and they'll never know even when your possible lenders call your work for all sorts of verification. Seriously, we lender shopped. My boss got like 6 or 7 calls total and was the absolute first person to congratulate me on moving. They will confirm so much stuff with your boss an hour, it's insane. Anything you say can and will be used against you. A thing to be aware of is that if you're getting a mortgage, the lender will contact your employer for verification of employment. I'm generally on the all personal life info is need to know, and your employer almost never needs to know side of things. But in this case, They'll be notified regardless. Given that, I'd just play talking to your employer in whatever way seems most beneficial. Whether telling them directly or letting them hear about it. One caveat to what I wrote: if your employer has an HR, they'll likely contact HR rather than your boss directly. So it's possible your boss wouldn't get that info. I have to address a lot of their reasoning is so that my employer doesn't get an idea that I'm now reliant on their income to survive. I feel like that's just really not a good reason. Even if you're renting, you're still reliant on their income to pay your rent, to buy food, gas, whatever else. We're all watching the news and we're all getting pissed at the prices in the grocery store. Your employer already knows that whatever income you're getting is vital. Moving on. I bought a house in June 2022. When I had been at my job about 2 years. My employer knew. Didn't change anything. I think it's safe to assume that your employer is assuming that you're working that job to pay for. Insert life needs here. To include housing, whether it's rent or a mortgage. I don't think give a shit. Honestly. You're no more reliant upon them with or without that information. Man shrugging, medium light skin tone. Stop giving out personal details to people at all. They don't have your best interests at heart. The only reason your friend was saved is because the employer assumed he was reliant on the income and would do 4 people's jobs for the same pay. That's usually what happens after layoffs. The ones left behind are buried in work. So no, I don't think it really helped your friend. Yes. Don't tell them anything about anything. Much like talking to the cops. It's never going to benefit you, it will only be used to harm you. You and your employer are in an inherently antagonistic relationship. You are trying to get as much money as you can out of them. They are trying to get as much productivity for as little money as possible. Frame your decision making about anything relating to work this way. I wouldn't just offer up that information. The upside to sharing is not that positive. Try to get through your settling on everything for the house in your own time and terms. And only should it be necessary. Let your boss know. When you're commenting on it, you can refer to whatever you need as housework. No need mention you just got it and have a mortgage for it. Never share any personal details with an employer, they will weaponize it. Keep your personal life and work separate. I've been in my current job for almost 10 years. And I've had the same boss the entire time. We get along perfectly fine. I have no idea whether he owns a house or not. Don't give your enemy bullets to shoot you with. Your boss is not your friend. Tell them nothing unless you have to. If you're applying for a mortgage, the underwriter will contact them for income employment verification. It's best to give them a heads up on that. You'll also be needing some time off for inspections, walkthroughs, closing, etc. Once you move in, you'll need to update your address with HR. And the sale is public record if they care or are nosy. Just tell them, if my employer threatens me with loss of health insurance or foreclosure, I'm going to laugh at them and start drafting my Glassdoor review. Point being, make sure you maintain a good emergency fund through the house purchase. Real G's move in silence, like lasagna. Your employer will immediately find out once you get into process on a mortgage. If you're qualifying with income from that job, then the mortgage company will call to verify that you still work there. My employer gave me a raise to help with mortgage payments. But I work for a small company and the owner isn't a total piece of shit. If one or the other of those statements isn't true for you, I'd probably keep the news to myself. Once told a boss I can pay my house off early. He cut my hours then fired me shortly after. Managers are not your friend. Your friend is the exception, not the rule. Your employer is not his employer.